and welcome into the latest edition of Premier League Express. We know it's been the international week, but we've still got lots to talk about. We'll be previewing what's ahead. The Premier League returns this weekend and it comes back with a bang. We've got the North London derby, we've got the Manchester derby, we've got Graham Potter's first Premier League game. So we'll be talking about all of those and answering your questions and bringing you a little bit more. Janusz Michallik is here with me, Kay Murray. We're not going to wait. We're going to get right into the North London derby. Arsenal top, Janusz. Spurs third, level on points with City, might I add. Is this the year that one of these North London clubs pips City or Liverpool to the Premier League title?
Oh, big ask. I'm still not willing to say it is, although I think if you're Arsenal or Spurs and you find yourself in a position going into the North London derby, it's a position that they haven't been in a long, long time, right? Where it's not just about the game, because, think about it, right? Arsenal and Spurs, for the most part, you could say, well, you and I'd be previewing this. Yeah, no chance here, disappointing season. But, of course, there's that one game that matters, and it always matters, of course. But here it matters because it's a derby, and also matters because of the table and where they sit right now. So I think they're in a great position. Of course, a lot of unknowns coming off of international week. We're saying here we're previewing, and we're not really sure what we're previewing in terms of some of the big players and how they come back from international duty. But regardless, I think a winner of this, I suppose, just imagine the momentum they're going to gain from that. Even a draw, probably, it's not the worst. And it's certainly one of those matches that the home side seem to be doing well as of late.
If you were to put one of them to finish in the top two, which one would you bank on?
Oh, yeah, they're so similar and yet so very different in the way they play. It always makes you wonder a little bit about Arsenal and Gabriel Jesus, for example. If he was not able to play for longer periods of time, I think that is a bigger question mark, right? We look at Spurs and we've been thinking and asking what's wrong with Heung-min Son, but yet Harry Kane, who doesn't usually start season well, carried the load. Now Heung-min Son is back, at least we think, in terms of scoring. So as it stands, it really is very even. But if I know, nobody wants anybody sitting on the fence. I like what Arsenal are doing just a little bit more.
Okay, that's interesting you say that. And I'm interested in you bringing Son up because obviously we talked on the last episode about the fact that he came off the bench, he scored that hat trick, and we think, okay, yeah, he's back. So what happens now in this game? Do you think Conte starts him?
Oh, absolutely. I think he, as I said before to you, Kay, I think his benching was with a very heavy heart. He's given him so many games, so many opportunities. Then, of course, you have to change that. And I don't even want to say that has kickstarted him. Everybody says, well, he was benched and it was a reaction. He knew he was going to get benched. He knew the longer he doesn't score, there are players, there's depth on Spurs. And I just think he reacted. It was one of those games where everything worked because he was forcing things. So I think he starts. Let's not forget against Costa Rica over the weekend. Wonderful free kick. If you haven't seen it, get out there somewhere on YouTube and take a look, or wherever you watch your highlights, because it was absolutely beautiful. 2-2 against Costa Rica was a tying goal. So I think he's got the confidence back, and I just can't wait. This is because the stars are aligned. Think about it. Arsenal, top of the table. Spurs won't like it, going away from home. Harry Kane scoring. Heung-min Son's back. Kulusevski has been very, very good. And just you can go on and on and on with both sides in tremendous form.
I know, it's so interesting. It's a good point you bring up. So many of the Premier League players have done really well on this international break. Now, I know that you say you believe maybe in Arsenal that little bit more if one of them were to finish in the top two. So you may have already answered this question, but it's not in terms of where they'll finish. I'm asking you which manager you believe in more, Conte or Arteta?
I think longer term, Arteta, and I don't say that lightly because I'm a massive fan of Antonio Conte. So hopefully I won't be called a hypocrite on this show anyway, because he's been very good. But look, the problem with Antonio Conte is that he's a fixer for a short term, as we know, and who knows, he may stay with Spurs longer, but I don't think of him as a builder, right? He's not the manager who's going to bring up young players and kind of give him the opportunity. And that leads me, great segue, I think anyway, leads me into Arteta, because he is a builder. We've seen that in the last couple of seasons. He's not afraid to introduce young players. who are paying dividends right now. If you look at Odegaard's and Saka's and Smith Rowe, even though he's injured, and Martinelli, this is sort of what Arteta had. He had a longer term vision, a vision that we question at every chance. Let's be honest here, right? I've done it, and just about probably everybody has done it, because we just didn't see it. Right now, he is seeing the younger players react. He has Gabriel Jesus, which was the most important buy in recent Arsenal history, and we don't probably even know the half of it, the way he started the season just yet. Whereas Antonio Conte probably was the right man. The pressure's on now. They have to win now. I mean, Spurs absolutely need a trophy of some sort. So I just think that longer term, I believe in Arteta, because I think Antonio Conte hasn't given me a reason to think that he's going to be there all that long, or be anywhere for
Right.
a long time.
Yeah. So you're all in on Arsenal on this chat, it seems.
Not all in. Tons of respect. What Conte is doing right now, I'm not surprised. As I've said, it's
70-30?
it's not impossible
70-30?
that Antonio Conte 60-40.
All right.
60-40.
All right, that's fair enough. Manchester Derby is the next one we need to talk about. I feel that the theme of this Premier League Express this week is resurgence, because they have been resurgent after that poor start to the Premier League. And as mentioned, a lot of great performances from players during the international break. But City, even though they've been getting results, we've seen them drop points already as well, they don't seem to be out of second gear yet. And that makes things even more interesting. So going into this game, given in mind there has been a bit of a pause, I want to ask you, who are the most important players on each team in the Manchester Derby?
And the mention, well, I mean, you can't get past Erling Haaland. You just can't. I know it may be boring. I mean, I could be a hipster here and try to come up with, with some names. But if you look at Manchester City, everybody's an important part, and everybody usually plays that part. There are very few games that I can recall where key players really, really disappointed for Manchester City. They are important in all of that, right? Phil Foden's going to be important. The decision, again, with Grealish and Foden and Bernardo Silva is going to be key, because Pep Guardiola has been trying so hard to give Jack Grealish every opportunity. He scored recently, so that's great. But we've seen it in Champions League against Dortmund, and we see it in the league, that when Phil Foden or Bernardo Silva do not play, Manchester City aren't as good, nowhere near, because the combination game for Jack Grealish is still not there yet. And I don't know if it's ever going to come to a level that I think we all expect because of the price tag. So you have to look at Erling Haaland, because I think, again, he's going to see 2, 3, or 4 opportunities that he usually puts away. And on the other side, I will tell you that the key is Marcus Rashford. Reemergence, I think he believes in himself. Finally, I don't want to say we're no longer talking about the potential, because that was something under the other managers where I don't know about you, but I was so frustrated. Potential. I mean, what's he now, 24, 25? I mean, how long does it take to realize your potential? And we've seen it once, then we haven't seen it for a long period of time. But I think right now, even though he's had some injury, he hasn't been with England. I think he knows that these are the games that Gareth Southgate is going to be watching very, very closely, especially with England not doing well, losing to Italy, dropping from top division, or being relegated from top division. Obviously, there's a game against Germany, which is going to be telling. So Marcus Rashford knows that he needs to deliver. He has so far under Ten Hag. He has his full backing by the looks of it. And I'm looking at this as the battle of the two front runners. And I think Marcus Rashford, again, we've seen him do it against Liverpool. Trying to remember, did he play against Arsenal? Sorry, I should know that. But anyway, Manchester United, obviously at home, have proven already on a great run of wins right now. Have won big games already. They've played Liverpool and Arsenal. This is going to be an interesting one, because there was always what if about Manchester United. Always something. Either a player, a team, defensive unit. I don't know when was the last time that United had this sort of kind of positive momentum on and off the pitch, but yet they face a team that, in my opinion, is clearly better than Manchester United on paper.
Yeah, Rashford started against Arsenal and scored 2
The
goals.
2 goals, yeah, I sort of remember.
Yeah, I know because there's so many. They're
I
all
don't feel
one.
I don't feel bad with you admitting that. I know you'll
No,
come
it's
in.
fine. Obviously, we're talking all the time, and the games are coming thick and fast. We've been covering international football this week. So, yeah, it's 3 goals in the last 4 games for him. I want to talk, though, about Erik ten Hag and I mean, the talk of him needing a long-term talisman, someone who we know can get a certain number of goals per year, whether 15 to 20 goals per year. Right now, with the Cristiano Ronaldo situation, obviously we know long term that's not going to work at Manchester United. We saw everything that happened in the summer transfer window. We don't know what he's going to be saying in the winter transfer window, if he's going to do the same all over again. But does it make sense for Erik ten Hag to try and keep hold of him for the winter transfer window and then look at their options for the summer to get a forward in?
Yes, as I said, I don't want to dismiss Cristiano Ronaldo. I've tried it every turn. Like everyone, quietly hinting that he's not the same, and we understand why. Obviously, age and everything that you can say about that. But I don't want to dismiss him because these are the games. If he starts or comes off the bench, that he will want to prove that he still has it. And being a great player like that, those are the players that I would never want to play against in that situation. When you doubt one of the goats of our game, because that's what's going to happen. And I think he'll understand that this is Manchester Derby. He'll understand that he's no longer the talk. I mean, he isn't the talk of the world. He's not even the biggest man in the city, because that's going to be Erling Haaland. Everybody's going to be talking about that. Nobody's going to be talking about Cristiano Ronaldo. And that's where you worry the most about a player, because he is still capable in a game, 2 or 3 games somewhere in the season, coming in and surprising and getting the winner or that most important goal in a particular game. So this is going to be interesting here for Cristiano Ronaldo in this particular game, because I feel he'll play a part, although obviously we've seen, I'm not sure what's happening with his face during the international game.
Yeah, he went on and played, didn't he?
He went on and played, so I think sometimes these injuries kind of get reassessed after the game. So I'm hoping that he's okay, because it's a big occasion, and you'd love to at least know that Cristiano Ronaldo is going to be part of it. I mean, as far as we know, he could start. Rashford's not automatic, right?
No, of course. So if you were to give Cristiano Ronaldo advice on how to play this winter transfer window, do you think he should just sit tight himself and just take the role that could be there for him at Manchester United for this season?
A lot, it will depend on the situation of Manchester United as well. But I think that's, in a way, it doesn't depend on Cristiano himself. It's there's somebody out there that's going to be looking for a special player to give it a push in, say, in the Champions League or for the title. If somebody comes and is willing to spend the money and take a risk, because it's still not going to be cheap. Cristiano Ronaldo is not going to go play for free, I don't think. So that is the bigger question. It's not what Cristiano Ronaldo wants, because we've seen that in the summer. Is there anyone out there that's willing to spend the money and still think that Cristiano Ronaldo is going to help them in a push for a title or for a Champions League win? So it's not up to him, I don't think, unless he lights out every time he gets a chance.
Because you think, though, it's one thing, like after what he did with the summer, they took that on board, and then Erik ten Hag, I mean, he's had to in some occasions, but he still used him. And then if he were to do that again, you wonder if his patience would run out, the manager. It's like, okay, we went through all that with you in the summer. I've still played you. Didn't have to. Well, did have to. Maybe sometimes.
Yeah, I'm convinced that Ten Hag would have been absolutely fine if Cristiano Ronaldo left. He knows he's building a longer term. I don't think it matters. I think Ten Hag said what he needed to say publicly, because it is Cristiano Ronaldo. You do have to respect that, and you don't want to be the manager that's out there saying Cristiano Ronaldo is not good enough and be remembered for that 10, 15 years ago. If he goes on and say scores great goals and wins big trophies, you don't want that. But I don't think Ten Hag cares about what Ronaldo may do in January. If he leaves, that gives him Ten Hag to say, okay, now I can build longer term, and obviously Cristiano Ronaldo is not part of that.
Next game I want to talk to you about is Crystal Palace against Chelsea. It's Graham Potter's first Premier League game as Chelsea manager. Does he have to win it?
Normally you say he doesn't, but I think he does. I think it's one of those early games where you don't look at Potter and say, well, is he going to be good enough long term, because the result is not, maybe it's not great, but at the very least, it's going to stop the talking about it for the most part, right? Every win gives him a little bit more time, so nobody is questioning in the media and in the stands if he was the right choice. So you look at Crystal Palace, you look at the first games, it hasn't been great just yet. This Chelsea team is hard to figure out, isn't it? I'm looking at this Chelsea team, and if you ask me today to pick Premier League best 11, I don't think there's one Chelsea player that I even think about. Well, no, differently. There are players that I may think about, Reece James, say, but I don't think I actually put him in the starting 11. So there wouldn't be one that I, at this moment, could honestly say, yes, he deserves it based on the way he's played. Maybe Reece James the closest to it. So I think he does have that problem. He still has a problem of not having momentum, not having the confidence, even in the players that he picks in the starting 11. And he's still, I mean, Thiago Silva's playing well, but is that really what you want when you're continuously talking about Thiago Silva, where he has to continuously play just about every game at his age? Questionable. So I think it's one of those games that he has to win, so the negativity in the media stops and nobody's asking questions, at least for a week.
Yeah, it's interesting as well with Palace, because we know they can cause teams problems, no matter if it's like being the best start for them or not. We saw what happened against City, and obviously City turned that around, but we know they can be tough to come up against. I want to know though, on the Chelsea side of things, is there a player that you feel may get a second chance, may get a second shot to step up under Potter? I'm interested if Pulisic's name comes into this at all, because the timing of that little extract coming from his book about Tuchel that we've talked about at length on ESPNFC. I mean, I don't know whether that was like the best way to deal with things for him, or if even the timing is kind of saying to his new coach as well, there might be a lot of thinly veiled messages in this. Please, can we have a better relationship? I'm willing to play for you, and I want to have this more transparent relationship.
Yeah, the timing sometimes is purposeful, isn't it? Nothing he can do about it. I'm not sure when he wrote that book and when it was all starting. I think Potter is smart enough to know that was the relationship he had with Thomas Tuchel. That doesn't mean that's going to be the same relationship that he's going to have with Christian right now. So I would just wait. Is he going to get the chances? I think he will. Every player is going to get their chances. Obviously, Stukanak didn't play against Japan for United States. We'll see if on Tuesday he's well enough to play against Saudi Arabia. So let's just wait and see, because he's unavailable right now. But I still think that the most important player to get playing and playing well and quickly is Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. This is the issue that Thomas
Goal
Tuchel.
scoring.
I think this is the issue that Graham Potter has had at Brighton. He solved that, if you like to say that, but nobody was paying attention. Let's be honest. With Potter, if he didn't have a real number 9, because Mopé wasn't scoring goals, let's be honest, nobody really cared in the bigger scheme of things. But people care now, because you're a manager of Chelsea Football Club, and you can no longer say, well, yeah, I don't have a number 9. Kai Havertz doesn't score enough, and everybody else doesn't score enough. Right now, you have Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, who I think is going to be the key to everything. He would have been the key to Thomas Tuchel, and he's going to be key, I think, to Graham Potter. Because the French players, everybody else, I think, once they have that player where they feel that Oba can score, I think makes a difference. Look at Arsenal, look at Gabriel Jesus. I mean, what a difference that makes.
Yeah, it's such an interesting situation with Aubameyang, isn't it? Coming in because he thought he was going to be playing under Tuchel, but it's not a bad player to inherit at all for Potter, and it's a great way to just start on a level playing field. And yeah, as you said, him and his importance, because they really do need to start scoring some goals. So before we move on to a little bit of any other business, which we will be touching on international duty, I wanted to ask you who your top 3 Premier League players are this season and why. And I feel that you might bring up Harry Kane, because you had a little debate last week and you thought he should have been in the Player of the Month awards.
I think he needs to be, because again, it's an amazing story how we think sometimes, right? Because we take it for granted how great some players are, their longevity, the stability, and how often and how consistent they score. Because as I've said, it's kind of, it almost got old for everybody, I'm sure, when he wasn't scoring early in the season. Took him a while to get going. Now he's doing that, and nobody really's talking about it as if this was a normal thing. I think we take very good or great players for granted, and I think Harry Kane is taken for granted. I would say, I don't know, I kind of want to say, I don't know if he is in England, but maybe around the world, right? Because not everybody looks at Premier League as this incredible league. We all know, we grew up in different places. You look at South America, yeah, they look at their players, but they don't necessarily think of Premier League as the end of it all, right? But I think around the world he doesn't get enough respect, and part of it maybe because he's English. Like we kind of like to banter. If you're not English, it's it's different. We like to take pot shots at England. At least
maybe with respect, it's because he's a Spurs player. Maybe if he was at Manchester City or Liverpool.
No, I don't necessarily think that, because I think everybody respects what he's done for England as well, because he's been consistent at every level. I remember not that long ago when he first came on the scene and he started scoring goals. I think if you were not a Spurs fan or maybe lived in England, else you'd be like, who? Where is he going? Where did he come from? Who is he? Why is he scoring these? Oh, that's not going to last. Only one season. Then comes the second season, then the third, then the fourth, then the fifth.
And the Golden Boot in the 2018 World Cup.
Right. And so now it almost feels to me that we seem to talk about Erling Haaland, and he's the one. So the third one I had a hard time. Nobody really picks himself. So low-hanging fruit, but I'm going the strikers. I'm going with Haaland. That's an obvious choice. Harry Kane, I kind of
going to say, because you didn't actually say it, so for sure it's Haaland.
For sure,
Haaland, I think you assumed that anyway.
Third one, without any doubt for me, is Gabriel Jesus. Without Gabriel Jesus, what's happening at Arsenal has zero chance it's happening. Zero chance, because we've seen it. We've seen Arsenal and Mikel Arteta working his magic slowly but surely, introducing the younger players, giving them tons of responsibility. But if you think about it, in the last couple of seasons under Arteta, there are many games where Arsenal played the Arsenal way, if you would, but the end product wasn't there. In fact, wasn't anywhere near that. But I think Gabriel Jesus gave just everybody around him that feel that, if we get the ball in there, there's somebody there that can put it away. So zero doubt. And maybe lazy on my part, because I was really thinking about it. I was thinking a little bit about Mitrovic, because I think his first time at Fulham was obviously indifferent, to say the least. But I'm going to say Fulham a little bit later on the show. But Mitrovic was close to me, because
he's fourth.
I'm happy for him. I think that he really wanted to show that he belongs.
So on our Any Other Business, we're cheating a little bit because we're using England talk to talk about Trent Alexander-Arnold. He keeps on reporting for international duty when he's called up. It's obviously not really in Gareth Southgate's favoured players, it's fair to say. And I just wonder where you stand just in general on Trent Alexander-Arnold. I feel that he's a player that divides so much opinion.
Well, he does. I know him very, very well. I follow him very closely. Love-hate relationship, I wouldn't say that. There's probably a better way of saying that. I understand what he does and what he does well, and he's arguably the best at it, right? A fullback going forward. His shortcomings as a defender are there for everyone to see. Even Liverpool supporters know, or better know, that it is an issue. But I think everybody understands that sometimes you have to do the extra work in order for him to do what he does going forward. And I think the Van Dijks and Konates and Matips understand that, and they're willing to work for him. I think at the international level, that's a little bit different. I think Gareth Southgate doesn't trust him. And here lies the problem with him and in England. And I saw a piece this morning praising him, how hard he works when he's called in, even though he knows that that the manager doesn't trust him. That's part on him. and pardon Southgate, because I've said this to you, I've said this at ESPN long time ago. Gareth Southgate has done a tremendous job with England so far. There's no denying that, but he holds players back. His pragmatism holds him back. And that's why Trent Alexander-Arnold is being held back, and maybe other players as well. The reason he doesn't trust him is because he wants to play 3 in the back or 5 in the back sometimes, where he has maybe the best generation of English players, where I'd expect them to do more and play better. And I don't see that. Now you can say they've gotten to the final, they've gotten to the semifinal of big competition. Yes, that's great. But there's a short window that England has, and to maybe win the big competition. But if that's going to happen, then you need a manager that's going to bring the best out of those players that want to attack, that want to play differently, because that window is closing. Belgium is a very good example of that. They've had those players as well. I could say very much the same about Roberto Martinez from time to time as Gareth Southgate. I think when you have a collection of young, hungry players that kind of want to play the game and play to the best of their abilities, I think they're being shortchanged by their manager, and Trent is. Having said that, Kyle Walker didn't look good against Italy, hasn't looked great in general as of late, I would say, right? Kieran Trippier, another choice. Reece James, another choice. A lot of choices at right back. I certainly understand why Gareth Southgate, the way he sets up a team, why he doesn't trust him. That doesn't mean that I think that Gareth Southgate plays the best football for this particular team, but neither here or there.
Oh, no, that's fair enough, I think. We're going to take a few viewer questions. The first of them is from Harsh, who says, with Liverpool dropping off, is there no stopping Man City for the title or the next 3 to 4 years in general?
It can be. Ahead of the season, we've been talking about Liverpool and Manchester City being favorites. Liverpool has had a slower start, an indifferent one. Here's the issue I have in the meantime, and maybe a longer term, probably the same, but this is a different season, and we all know that Liverpool and Manchester City are very capable of good longer winning runs, and it's been proven by Manchester City, who last season had a slower start, but then they went on a run. Liverpool has done it in the last 2 or 3 years. Even last, remember, they were game in hands. They were, I think, like 14 points behind at one stage because it was the COVID seasons and all that. There are no games in hand, and unfortunately, this is stop and start season. It is very difficult to go on these runs, because think about it. You start the season. If you don't start great, which Liverpool hasn't, you're already behind. Not just Manchester City, but Arsenal as well. Hard to make that up. Now, international window, it stops the momentum. You may regain some players. You may lose some players. We'll see in the next couple of days. Then you're being asked to go on a run, and then comes the World Cup, month off. It's not easy to keep that momentum. Say you win 1, 2, or 3 in a row. You want to keep playing. You want to build that momentum, which Liverpool can. But here, even in this window, I'm looking, there's Arsenal, there's Manchester City, there's some massive games, even Spurs before the World Cup. There's some massive games coming their way. So the point is that if Liverpool doesn't get on the run now, I am afraid that before the World Cup starts, they may be out of the title run. So that's the answer for that.
Oh, wow.
Well, because they're already behind, and they have one game in hand and obviously can win. Now it's a massive game this weekend. Forget the rest, but they have to beat Brighton at home just to kind of keep up, right? And take advantage, because Manchester City, Manchester United, maybe City drop points, Arsenal against North London. Critical.
Right. They could be the big winners this weekend.
Critical weekend for Liverpool. I believe they can beat Brighton, and we'll shelve this conversation, but not for long, because I think what I was just saying continues with Liverpool because of the schedule and going on around. And then longer term, I think I agree, because I just think the Manchester City they spend the money. If they see the player they want, it doesn't matter. If it's Grealish, 100 million and more. If it's Haaland, well, his pricing was different. He just chose to go there. I think Liverpool is still held back in terms of maybe by younger players that we can develop, and one of those. I think it's always going to be difficult to go against City. Liverpool or anybody else. I just think money's no issue. And for as long as it stays there and Pep continues to be there longer term, I think we're going to be in the same situation. Not necessarily just Liverpool's problem, Kate.
Well, yeah, that's a massive selling point as well, money aside, that you get to play under Pep Guardiola, obviously, too, and to play with the players that you do. Next question. Who's been your biggest surprise so far in the Premier League, player and / or club? So you can just pick a player, you can pick a club, or you can pick both. And I know you alluded to this question a little earlier in the show.
Yes, Fulham Football Club. I had them in relegation. Shame on me. Of course, I don't hope, I don't want to double down and cheer against Fulham. So my prediction comes good, because that's not what it's all about, right? So I'm happy the way they play. Marco Silva's doing a tremendous job, right? We saw him do that once. I think it was Watford. Then went to Everton, didn't go his way. But I think we worried about if it's going to be the same Fulham as it was about with Scott Parker, but obviously two different managers. One very pragmatic, and one Marco Silva that's trying to use his players in the proper way. Mitrovic, of course, with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, proving that he belongs. Palhinha, oh boy, I think we all knew before that he was such a good player. We see Sporting playing so well now, even though they've lost a couple key players, but he's been absolutely tremendous as well. And there are a number of players that doing well for Fulham. They're sitting, I have to look, sixth place right now, just behind Manchester United. So that's good for Fulham, right? Because tough times will come, but it's good to get the points early. So at least you have the opportunity to maybe lose a game or two, and it's not the end of the world. But I'm really happy. A little bit of a softer spot because Fulham has had a number of U.S. internationals in the past, and those have them now as we speak. One will be in the World Cup. One, Tim Ream, probably not. But then again, you don't know. Anthony Robinson's doing well, even though he's been injured as of late. So I'm really happy to see what Fulham has done, and that was, for me, that was an easy pick.
Oh, that's always, and it's so nice, that walk to Craven Cottage. There's so many nice things about Fulham. Just quickly, Janusz, because I let this slip last week, you slid into the show that you trained with Alan Shearer. Tell us a bit more about that before we say goodbye.
Oh yeah, it was a long time ago. I was on the U.S. national team, and in preparation for the World Cup in '94. There was a time before we were all living together in California and preparing, kind of going from a trip to trip. We had time off, and I didn't, I went to Southampton to train and not to lose fitness. And yes, Alan Shearer was just still there. He was leaving in the next couple months to Blackburn, and of course we all know what he did at Blackburn as well. That was the last time we've talked about Blackburn, probably since then. Yes, but Matthew Letizia, I mean, there was a lot of good players there, and great time. I'm sure he doesn't remember me, but I do remember him, and yeah, it's helped me kind of to talk about him while he was still playing, because I remember some of the things he was doing that you don't usually see in games very often, or you wonder where it come from on the training pitch. So yeah, it was a good memory.
I'm sure he remembers you, Janusz. Don't you worry. If I ever meet him again, I'll ask him. All right. Thanks so much for being with us for the latest edition of PL Express. Make sure to join us every Monday. That's when we come out, exclusive to YouTube. This is an exclusive show on YouTube. And every single week we talk about the Premier League. So next Monday, we'll be looking back on the weekend that was, and what a weekend it is set to be. See you then.
Thank you very much for watching ESPNFC on YouTube. For more highlights, analysis, and exclusive content, be sure to subscribe.